A woman was shot and killed just minutes after posting about the domestic violence she was facing. Family members say 34-year-old Mariah Samuels lost her life this weekend to that violence.
"I'm not going to fight this situation." Those were the words David Eugene Wright said to investigators the morning they caught up with him. No panic, no denial. Just a man who had already decided what he was going to do, did it, and was done. What he left behind was a woman named Mariah Samuels, 34 years old, a mother, a daughter, a sister, lying outside her own home in North Minneapolis at 7:50 in the morning. She had called 911 that same morning. She had told them he was violating the order she had fought to get. She had posted publicly that she was not being protected. She had done everything, and none of it was enough. You are watching Silent Outcome. Before we continue, like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss a case like this.
She cried for help. You know, she didn't get an answer.
With the police officer to ensure that your white citizens are protected. What happens to your black and brown native citizens on the south side, on the north side, left to their own demises? What happens to them? Where does their justice stand when they take every step to protect themselves, protect their family?
Mariah Rosanna Samuels was not a woman who sat still. That was the thing everyone who loved her said first, not as a eulogy line, but as the most accurate description they could give of how she moved through the world. She was 34 years old and she was building something. Not quietly, not cautiously, but with the kind of forward momentum that comes from a person who has decided that her life belongs to her and that she intends to fill it completely. She lived on the north side of Minneapolis, in a neighborhood she knew, surrounded by people who knew her back. She had 2 sons. Everything she did with them in mind. The older one was 18. The younger one, Peace, was 11. His name was not an accident. The people who knew Mariah said she loved her boys more than anything else in her life, more than her animals, more than her adventures, more than the next thing she was always planning. Her sons were the center. Everything else orbited around them. But the orbit was wide. Mariah was not a woman who shrank herself down to fit a smaller life. She was a dog groomer. She had built her own business around something she genuinely loved. And she also worked at Petco, because she was the kind of person who wanted to be around animals even when the day was already full. Her sister Selena described her in the days after she died, and the words she chose were not the careful, measured words of a prepared statement.
She loves animals. She loved her son. She was sweet. She was outgoing. She was free-spirited. We loved each other. She's my everything.
Mariah loved unicorns. She loved everything colorful. Butterflies, fantasy, the whole bright spectrum of things that most adults quietly set aside when they decide it is time to be serious. Mariah did not set them aside. She carried them forward into her 30s with the same ease she carried everything else that was genuinely hers. Really magical, her sister said. Really bubbly. A good soul. Joyful. Down to earth. What her family described, collectively, was not a woman living a diminished or fearful life. They described someone in motion. Someone with a business, with sons to raise, with friendships that ran deep, with a sense of herself that had taken 34 years to build and had not finished building yet. She was still in it. She was still adding to it. That is the detail that matters most, and it matters because it is the one the story will keep returning to without ever stating it again. Mariah Samuels was not waiting for her life to begin. She was already inside it, fully. On the morning of the 14th of September 2025, when everything she was building stopped, she met David Eugene Wright the way most people meet someone who will eventually change their life without any warning that that is what was happening. He came into her world as a romantic partner. He occupied that role the way people do at the beginning, when everything is still surface and nothing has been tested yet. To the people around Mariah, he was simply the man she was seeing. There was no obvious reason, at first, to look harder than that. Wright was 51 years old. He had lived a life before Mariah, a life with a documented history that she may not have known in full when things began. He had a prior conviction for a controlled substance offense. He was on federal probation at the time he entered her life, and as part of that supervision, he was legally prohibited from possessing a firearm. These were facts that existed before he ever said a word to her. They were facts the system around him already knew. They would matter enormously later. In the beginning, they were invisible to her. What Mariah saw in those early months was what Wright chose to show her. This is not a statement about her judgment. It is a statement about how this works. The people who do the most damage are rarely the people who announce themselves. They are the people who are patient, who are present, who make themselves feel necessary before they make themselves feel dangerous. The mask is the whole strategy. The relationship itself is the method of access. Her family said they had been together for a few months. That was all. A few months, enough time to establish trust, enough time to create the kind of closeness that makes a person feel seen, enough time to make the idea of distance feel like loss rather than relief. And somewhere inside those months, without a specific moment that anyone could point to afterward, things began to shift. The shift was not dramatic at first. It never is. What her family observed was not a sudden transformation, but a slow accumulation, a change in the atmosphere around Mariah that was easier to feel than to name. The relationship that had begun with ease was no longer easy. The man who had been present in a way that felt like care was becoming present in a way that felt like something else. The people who loved Mariah noticed. They noticed the way people always notice these things, not with certainty, not with the language of danger, but with a low unease they could not yet justify in specific terms. Mariah was beginning to create distance. This is important. She was not passive inside what was happening to her. She was paying attention, and what she was paying attention to was telling her something, and she was beginning to act on what it told her. She did not yet have the documented evidence that would later make the danger undeniable. But she had her own instincts, and her instincts were right. The people closest to her watched the relationship change, and they watched Mariah change in response to it, not into someone smaller or more fearful, but into someone quietly moving toward the door. She was not fleeing. She was deciding. There is a difference, and the difference matters here. Mariah Samuels was a woman who made decisions. She made them deliberately, she made them clearly, and when she made the decision that this relationship was over, she made it the same way she made every other decision in her life, with intention and without ambiguity. She picked up the phone on the 21st of August 2025. She called David Wright to end it. She told him they were done. She said it plainly, the way she did things. She had no way of knowing in the moment she made that call that ending the relationship clearly and directly was the thing that would make her the most dangerous she had ever been to him. Not because of anything she had done, because of what she had decided. Because she had decided she was allowed to leave. And David Wright, it would turn out, did not agree. The call ended and Wright moved. He tracked her that same night. August 21st, Mariah had driven to a home in North Minneapolis to drop off Peace. It was an ordinary errand on an ordinary evening, the kind of thing a mother does without thinking twice, because it is simply part of the rhythm of the day. Wright found her there. He had been with her for a few months. He already knew enough about her movements to know where to look. When Mariah stepped outside, he was waiting. What happened next is documented in the petition she filed with Hennepin County District Court 5 days later. In her own words, under oath, Wright approached her with a gun. He pistol whipped her. He threw her against a fence. He grabbed her by the throat. He struck her in the face and in the upper body. And then he told her he would shoot her. She called 911. Wright fled before officers arrived. The case was logged as a gone on arrival, the department's internal designation for a domestic violence call where the suspect is no longer present when police get there. The officers responded. They documented what they found, and then the case moved into the system, where it would sit and wait and ultimately go nowhere fast enough to matter. This is the moment the story pivots, not gradually, here. On August 21st, outside a North Minneapolis home, with a gun already drawn and a hand already around her throat, the relationship stopped being a deteriorating situation and became a documented threat. The difference between those two things is not semantic. One is a private reality. The other is a fact on record that carries legal weight and demands institutional response. Mariah had just handed the system everything it needed. What the system did with it is a separate story, and it is coming. But first, what Mariah did. She did not wait for the system to move. She did not assume that filing a police report would be enough. 5 days after the assault, on August 26th, she walked into Hennepin County District Court and petitioned for an order for protection. She filed it for herself and for peace. She described what Wright had done to her in precise and unflinching detail. She told the court she was extremely scared for her life. Those were her words. Extremely scared for her life. Not a vague expression of discomfort. A specific statement of specific fear from a woman who had a gun held on her less than a week before and was not pretending otherwise. The court granted the order. On August 27th, Wright was served. The order was now a legal fact. It prohibited him from contacting her. It prohibited him from approaching her. It put his name and her name into a formal legal record that said, in the clearest institutional language available, this man is a documented danger to this woman, and he is not allowed near her. Wright had a federal probation officer. He was on supervised release. He was already prohibited from possessing a firearm under the terms of that supervision, and he had just used one to assault his ex-girlfriend and threaten to shoot her. The assault alone, if escalated through the chain of his supervision, carried the weight to pull him off the street. The firearm violation alone was enough. Together, they were more than enough. He was not detained. Mariah had the order. She had the court filing. She had the documented assault. She had a system that had received her report, processed her petition, granted her protection on paper, and then largely returned to its existing pace while David Wright remained free and within reach of a woman he had already told he would shoot. And Wright was not finished. The order meant nothing to him, not as a deterrent, not as a boundary, not as a legal reality he intended to respect. In the days that followed, he contacted her anyway. Texts, messages. The specific conduct the order existed to prevent. Each contact was a violation. Each violation was a documented fact. And each documented fact was a moment where the system had an opportunity to act and did not move fast enough to matter. Mariah tracked it. She told people. She was not silent about what was happening. She was doing the things a person does when they have been told that the system will protect them if they follow the correct steps. She was following the correct steps, and she was documenting every instance where the person she needed protection from was treating the order like it did not exist. On the morning of September 14th, she texted her sister. Wright had texted her again. Another violation. She reported it. She called 911. She told them he was violating the order. Officers were dispatched. And then, in the same window of time when those officers were responding to her call, Mariah posted on Facebook, She wrote publicly that Wright had threatened her family and damaged her car. She said out loud to anyone who would read it that she was not being protected. She was not venting. She was documenting. She was creating a public record because the private record had not been enough, and she knew it. She was 34 years old, and she had already done everything she was supposed to do, and she was still afraid, and she was right to be afraid. And she was sitting in her Jeep outside her home on Russell Avenue North when David Wright arrived. Mariah got her order. The court did its part, but an order for protection is a piece of paper. Its power depends entirely on what the institutions around it are willing to do when it is violated. And in the weeks between August 27th, when Wright was served, and September 14th, when he showed up outside her home, those institutions had multiple documented opportunities to intervene. Wright was on federal probation. His supervision officer knew, or should have known, that he had been accused of a violent assault involving a firearm. The terms of his probation prohibited him from possessing a weapon. The assault allegation alone was grounds for action. The firearm allegation alone was grounds for action. Together, they were the kind of documented escalation that federal supervision exists precisely to catch and respond to before it becomes something irreversible. Post-homicide scrutiny fell hard on the question of what Wright's supervision looked like in the weeks before the killing, and the answers that emerged were not reassuring. The order for protection was active. Wright was violating it. Mariah was reporting the violations. She had called 911 that morning to report his contact. The police department received her call. They dispatched officers. And in the time between that call and those officers arriving, the window that should have been a protection had already closed. Police Chief Brian O'Hara, in the weeks after the homicide, ordered a full review of the department's handling of the case. He directed that every officer be retrained on domestic violence response protocols by the end of 2025. He directed that officers responding to domestic violence calls and protection order violations be required to ask the victim directly whether they felt safe and to take affirmative action based on the answer. These were not small adjustments. They were the kind of sweeping directives that a department issues when it has looked at what happened and cannot defend it. The Minneapolis City Council passed a resolution demanding answers. The community marched. Family members stood outside the Hennepin County Government Center in purple shirts with Mariah's face on them and demanded full transparency from the mayor, from the police department, and from the county attorney's office. Her sister Simone stood in front of cameras and said the Minneapolis Police Department let her sister die. Every warning had been delivered. Every step had been taken. Every box had been checked. And David Wright was still free, and still close, and still coming. If you have been following Silent Outcome, you already know that the cases that hit hardest are the ones where the ending was never inevitable, where there were specific moments, specific decisions, specific people with the authority to intervene who did not move in time. This is one of those cases. Stay with me. Because what Wright did in the hours before he arrived at Mariah's door, and what the investigation uncovered in the hours after, is the part of this story that makes everything that came before it land even harder. Mariah had made her 911 call. She had sent the text to her sister. She had posted publicly on Facebook a post that named what Wright was doing, that said plainly she was not being protected, that created a public timestamp of her fear in the final minutes before everything changed. She was sitting in her Jeep outside her home on Russell Avenue North. It was just before 8 in the morning on the 14th of September, 2025. Wright had been watching. He knew where she lived. He had known for months. He had spent weeks demonstrating that the order was not something he intended to honor. And on the morning she called 911 to report him, he was already close enough to act before anyone arrived to stop him. He approached her vehicle. He opened fire. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Wright fled into the city, into the morning, into whatever calculation a man makes when he has just done what he decided he was going to do and is now deciding what comes next. Investigators moved quickly. They reviewed surveillance footage from around the scene and identified a suspect whose appearance matched Wright. They pulled the records. They found the order for protection. They found her name and his name on the same document, the one that said he was not allowed near her, the one she had fought to get, the one that had not kept her safe. The pieces came together fast. Wright was arrested the following morning in Anoka, roughly 30 miles north of Minneapolis. He had not gone far. When investigators caught up to him and took him into custody, he did not perform surprise. He did not construct a story. He looked at the situation and said what he said. "I'm not going to fight this situation. This is not going to be a hard-fought case." There was no version of those words that was not a confession. Not a legal confession in that moment that would come later, in a courtroom, on the witness stand, in front of a jury, but a human one. The statement of a man who had done exactly what he had planned to do and saw no point in pretending otherwise. The arrogance that had driven every decision he made from August 21st forward did not disappear when the handcuffs went on. It simply changed shape. He was booked into the Hennepin County Jail. He was initially charged with second-degree murder and illegal possession of a firearm. The community was already gathering. By the time the first court date arrived, Mariah's family and friends were already in the streets, already demanding answers, already wearing her face on their shirts, and carrying signs that said, "Justice for Mariah," into the cold Minneapolis air. The case was not over. It was just beginning to become what it would eventually be, a documented reckoning with what one man did and with every institution that had the chance to stop him and did not. The initial charges did not hold their shape for long. Wright had been booked on second-degree murder and illegal possession of a firearm. Those were the charges that fit the first 72 hours, the immediate legal container for what had happened before investigators had finished building the full picture of what Wright had been doing and for how long. As that picture came into focus, the Hennepin County Attorney's Office looked at what they had and decided that second-degree murder was not the right frame for it. In November, the charges were upgraded. First-degree premeditated murder. First-degree murder with a past pattern of domestic abuse. Both counts carried a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. The upgrade was not a procedural formality. It was a prosecutorial statement about what the evidence showed, that Wright had not acted in a moment of rage or impulse, but had planned what he did, had waited for the right moment, and had carried it out with the deliberate patience of a man who had already decided the outcome. In December, a grand jury indicted him on those charges. The Hennepin County attorney issued a statement alongside the indictment. "The system we entrust to keep us safe failed to protect Mariah, despite her doing everything we ask of victims of domestic violence. Leaders within the system must hold themselves and be held accountable." Trial began in April 2026, and on the second day of proceedings, David Eugene Wright took the witness stand. What happened next was not what defense strategy typically looks like. Wright sat in front of the jury, in front of the judge, in front of Mariah's family who had traveled to that courtroom to watch the law do what the system had failed to do while she was still alive, and he admitted it. He said he shot and killed Mariah Samuels. He said he did a terrible thing. He said he felt terrible. He apologized to her family directly, saying he did not want to minimize what he had done. And then he used a phrase that landed in that courtroom the way an admission lands when the person delivering it still does not fully grasp the magnitude of what they are confessing to. He said he really messed up about the situation. He messed up about the situation. A 34-year-old mother was dead outside her own home. A son named Peace no longer had his mother. A family had spent 7 months in streets and courtrooms and government buildings demanding answers from a system that had received every warning and moved too slowly to matter. That was the situation he had messed up about. The jury did not need long. They returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. First-degree premeditated murder. First-degree murder with a past pattern of domestic abuse. Judge Mark Kappelhoff addressed Wright directly before announcing the sentence. Wright had initially refused to appear for his sentencing, failing to leave his cell on the date it was first scheduled. He was brought before the court on the 21st of April, 2026. The sentence was mandatory, and it was final. Life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Based upon the jury's verdict in this case, I will turn first to count 4, sentencing in order of the offenses. As to count 4, following the jury's verdict of guilty, Mr. Wright, you are hereby found guilty of prohibited person possession of a firearm in violation of Minnesota statute. Section 624.713.110I. And the judgment of this court is that you are hereby convicted of that offense. You are to serve 364 days in Hennepin County Adult Correctional Facility, credit for 218 days already served. This sentence will run concurrent to the sentence imposed in count 1. You must provide a DNA sample as required by law, and you are prohibited from possessing firearms, ammunition, or explosive devices for the remainder of your life. I will now turn to count 1. Following the jury's verdict of guilty, you are found guilty of the murder in the first degree, premeditated, in violation of Minnesota statute section 609.185A1. It is the judgment of this court that you are hereby convicted of that offense. The court finds that a firearm was used in the commission of this offense. You are hereby committed to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for the remainder of your life without release or parole, with credit for 0 days already served. This sentence will run concurrent to the sentence imposed in count 4. You must provide a DNA sample as required by law. You are prohibited from possessing firearms, ammunition, or explosive devices for the remainder of your life. You must register as a predatory offender if required by law. Order that you pay a $50 fine, a criminal surcharge of $75, and a $3 library fee. The public defender copay is waived. You must pay restitution in the amount of $5,895 as set out in the restitution findings in order that I will sign momentarily. As to count 2, murder in the first degree while committing domestic abuse with past pattern of domestic abuse in violation of Minnesota statute 609.185A6. And count 3, murder in the second degree with intent in violation of Minnesota statute 609.19.11. Following the jury's verdict, you are hereby found guilty, but no sentence will be pronounced pursuant to Minnesota statute 609.035.
David Eugene Wright will not leave prison. He will not have another opportunity to track someone down, to wait outside another home, to make another decision about whether another woman is allowed to leave him. That was the accountability the law could deliver. It was the most the law had. And for Mariah's family, standing in that courtroom, it was both everything and not nearly enough. The courtroom was full. Mariah's family had come in numbers, wearing purple, carrying 7 months of grief and 7 months of demands for accountability into a room where the law was finally going to do the one thing it had not done while she was still alive. They had marched. They had stood outside government buildings. They had spoken into microphones and cameras, and they had refused, at every point, to let her name become a footnote. Now they were here, and the man who had killed her was sitting a short distance away, and one by one they stood up and said what losing her had cost them. The room broke open. That is the only honest way to describe what happened when her family spoke. Not composed statements delivered at a careful distance from the pain, but the raw, specific texture of what it actually means to lose a person you loved completely and irreplaceably. Her sisters spoke. Her mother spoke. A cousin spoke. Each one carried a different version of the same loss and found different words for it, and none of the words were enough, because the words that would have been enough did not exist. What emerged from those statements, collectively, was a portrait of a woman. The courtroom was only now meeting a woman who had been kind, honest, full of life, devoted to her boys, present for the people around her, in ways they were only beginning to fully understand now that she was gone. Her family described someone who loved animals and raised her sons with intention and moved through the world with a warmth that did not ask permission and did not make exceptions. They described someone who had her own business, her own plans, her own forward momentum that had no reason to stop. Her mother said she was relieved that Wright would never be able to do this to another family. She said it was the most she could say about what the verdict meant to her. It was not peace. It was not healing. It was relief, the specific, limited relief of knowing the man who had destroyed her family could not reach anyone else. The grief itself had not stayed at a distance for her. It had moved into her body in ways that were concrete and ongoing, and that no sentence could address. Outside the courtroom, family and supporters gathered. The purple shirts were still there. The conviction was real, and the sentence was permanent, and David Wright would not leave prison. And still, when asked whether justice had been served, her sister Simone could not find those words inside herself. She said so plainly, not because the verdict was wrong, but because a verdict is not the same thing as return, and no legal outcome closes the distance between what is and what should have been. If this case has stayed with you, go to Silent Outcome and drop a comment. Tell us what you think accountability actually looks like when a system receives every warning and still does not move in time. The next investigation is already underway, and it follows another case where the warnings came early and the protection came too late. Mariah Samuels was 34 years old. She had 2 sons. She had a business she had built herself. She had plans that extended past September 14th ordinary plans, the kind a person makes when they have every reason to believe the future is still arriving on schedule. She had already done everything the system asked of her. She had filed the reports, gotten the order, made the calls, posted publicly, and called 911 on the morning she was killed. The silence she left behind is not the silence of a story that reached its ending. It is the silence of one that was interrupted. Her sons are still here. The future she was building for them is still the shape it would have been just empty now, where she should have been standing inside it. She told the system she was afraid. She told it clearly, more than once, in more than one form, and the system logged it and processed it and moved at its own pace. And Mariah Samuels ran out of time.